What aren't we learning in this course? This is going to be a quick expectation setting session, or maybe a disclaimer if you'd call it that, right? If you're here and you've purchased this program, you've made quite a commitment to us, right? That means you probably understand how I work. You've probably been following my social media for a while, and you understand that I'm not about get rich quick schemes here. You can use the methods in this guide to get rich pretty fast. And I'm not patting myself on the shoulder here, but I made a lot more money than I would have thought I would in rental properties, out-of-state rental properties, in a very short period of time, using the foundation that you're going to get here in this guide, and then adding more risk and more of a business on top of it, right? We basically flip properties. You could flip properties with the information here, but that's not my goal. My goal for you is to teach you a process that you can execute successfully, repeatedly, and sustainably for an extended period of time. And you could do whatever you want to modify that process thereafter. I'm giving you a foundation in this guide, and that foundation is going to teach you how to identify, how to purchase, and how to operate a remote rental property successfully. So what I'm not going to do here is push you towards high risk or a high execution barrier in order to chase a disproportionately high reward. I don't need your first rental property that you buy after this guide to make you really rich. You don't need to make hundreds of thousands of dollars on it or just tremendous cash flow and retire. You don't need to get infinite returns on the property, which means I don't need you to buy a property for 50 grand and put 50K of rehab into it and then magically get it to appraise for $500,000 and you get all your money back on a refinance. I don't need you to take on a big project by any means. I don't need you to have no money down. I don't want you to have no money. I hope you're not trying to invest in rental property or start a business when you have zero money. You probably need to just make some cash at that point. But I'm not asking you to take on a big old project and take a bunch of hard money out to be able to successfully execute that project. And look, we're not trying to do anything speculative here. What does that mean? That means I'm not going to push you towards some appreciation play in Austin, Texas, because that market's growing so fast that makes negative cash flow every month, and promise you a way to guarantee that the equity grows and grows and grows without a whole bunch of downside. I'm trying to remove as much risk as possible while you learn how to do this thing so that it's not so scary on your first go around. If you want it to be scary on your second, third, or fourth, or fifth go around, hell, go for it. I'm not going to be watching you anyways, but I'm not going to put my name on that. Let's show you the kind of property I have in mind for you on a first purchase. This is actually one example of many different possibilities. This is a property we sold to our client. It's in Richmond, Kentucky. It's a 4-unit building. It cash flows, and we'll show you what an 8 cap means in a little bit. And it's an affordable property too. A clean and stable property, but an affordable property. $205K sale price is not a whole lot because it's fully occupied. It qualifies for a loan, and our client bought this with $41,000 down. That's not a big cash outlay for a first purchase. And if you wanted to start even smaller, you can buy a duplex for $140,000, $150,000 somewhere and put $30,000 down and have some reserves and still buy a pretty clean property, right? So that's the kind of thing I have in mind for you. Something that's not going to sink you on your first deal. It's going to look something like this. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty decent. And the neighborhood's not going to be perfect either. It's going to be working class, but not full of tear downs and board ups and crime. It's going to be working class enough for the property to be affordable and for the property to cash flow. Because guess what? You go into that really nice neighborhood, like that one I showed you we Airbnb'd in back in Indianapolis when we stayed out there, and the risk of drama with the property goes down a lot, but the risk of not making money goes up a ton because the property is so expensive. So we're striking a healthy balance here by working in working class neighborhoods, and also in markets that are not in the hottest, most trendy cities. Can you go and use what I'm teaching you to get properties in, let's say, I don't know, Lexington, Kentucky? Really popular market? Sure, I'm sure you could, right? But the reason this property is in Richmond is because, well, it's far enough that all the people looking for the trendy market, they might not have noticed this place. It's not so heavily shopped. You have a better chance of getting a pretty good deal, but it's close enough that you still get to enjoy the advantages of the greater metro area, right? You still get these Lexington resources, like the property manager from Lexington is going to be willing to manage this property in Richmond. We're going to work on properties also that are going to be easy for you to manage successfully because you're going to rely on a property management company. Something like this that's not so far off of market rents, probably a pretty good idea for you, because when you get into a property and you hand it off to the manager, you're asking them to stabilize it, to make sure it performs. And it's going to be tough if you give them something that's renting for half of market, which usually means the units need complete renovation as soon as the tenant leaves. Which might mean the tenants aren't performing or taking good care of the place. Who knows? Usually that's what we've observed with these very, very under-rented buildings. So yeah, chasing something that's not super duper under-rented is going to mean an easier experience for your property management company, which means a higher chance of you getting paid by them at the end of each month, right? And we're going to go for a property that's in decent condition. What do I mean by decent condition? Well, look, not everything can be perfect, but in general, this property had a 5-year-old roof, and it had, HVAC was 4 to 6 years old, right? All the ACs were 4 to 6 years old. The heat pumps, right? The AC was new in 2016, so 6 years old, 5 years at the time of this sale. Right, so this property doesn't have any big ticket expenses coming up, meaning you're not going to be surprised and have to empty your wallet, or not going to be as likely to be surprised and have to empty your wallet. But it's got a couple little things that aren't perfect about it. Like, let's take a look at cosmetically. Pretty nice building, but you're going to see little things like tenants are messy, right? And I'm sorry, these should have loaded up before. Tenants are a little bit messy, not a big deal, but the units look good. What else do we have? You're going to see little things like settling. And these tiles were probably not supposed to run out this far, especially along a joint like this, because a frame building that's older is going to settle over time, and you get little cracks along the joints of the tiles like this, right? So maybe LVP floors were a better idea for this little bathroom area. So this is exactly the kind of imperfect we're talking about, where the property is not so beautiful that you're paying a premium for this thing, but it's nice enough that it's not going to cause you a bunch of drama. And to give you a sense of the value of finding a deal that's just a little bit imperfect but not too crazy is a bit of Zillow overview over here. So the property is located right around here on North Street, right? And you can see some listings. You've got a larger house nearby, 2,000 square feet for $314. You got a smaller house, 1,100 square feet for $159. This thing was $205 for a 3,800 square foot fourplex. And if we go to sold comps and we go multifamily only, let's show you an example. This was a duplex that sold nearby, 1,730 square feet, less than half the total square footage. Sold for $155 about a year ago. Probably would have sold for a little bit more today, I would wager. Clean and turnkey, but not like your property was very far from that, right? You might spend $10,000 to get it to be this stable across the property, maybe a tiny bit more. In exchange, what you're getting is $205,000 for over double the property. $50,000 more got you over the double the property in this case. So don't feel so off-put by the fact that I say I don't want you to shoot for a home run on this first deal. This is a pretty good first deal. I'd say if you can land a first deal like this, you're in good shape, because this property is probably worth somewhere between $240 and $275 if I were to guess, just based on square footage and location, maybe even more. But I don't want to speculate, right? Let's call it around $250 is what we think this thing is worth. You can walk into some instant equity on a property that doesn't require you to do a lot for it, then I think you've won. So this is kind of our, I'd say, our focal point on a first deal. Imagine yourself finding something a little bit like this, and I think you have a pretty high chance of being successful, and you're gonna be willing to move on to that next deal pretty quickly because you're not spending time licking your wounds and taking on big projects.